Divine Revelation. 7 Miraculous Steps to Overcome Marijuana Addiction Through Prophetic Healing. In the quaint town of Wendell, a whisper of hope filled the air of the chapel that evening. Flickering candlelight danced upon the worn wooden pews, casting shadows that told stories of those who walked the path of faith. Sophie, a devoted mother known for her tireless service, sat quietly, her heart heavy with a secret burden. She had become ensnared in the shadows of marijuana addiction, a struggle hidden beneath her pious exterior. As the pastor raised his hands, a serene hush fell. The moment of divine revelation was about to unfold. "God has a promise for you," he declared, his voice resonating through the sacred space. "He will lead you through 7 miraculous steps to healing." His words felt like an electric surge of energy, awakening something deep inside Sophie. She felt warm tears cascade down her cheeks as her weary soul flickered with hope. Yet, as the congregation erupted into joyous prayer, her husband Mark sat nearby, arms crossed, skepticism etched on his face. A man grounded in logic and science, he preferred solutions backed by facts. "Do you really think these steps will help?" he later asked, concern shadowing his brow. Unfazed by his doubts, Sophie felt God's gentle nudging to embark on this spiritual journey. She wasn't alone. The community rallied around her with heartfelt prayers, but the weight of her addiction loomed ominously, overshadowing their collective faith. The first step proved daunting. Sophie found herself battling waves of self-doubt and despair. One evening, she slipped, relapsing into her old habits, her heart a tangled web of disappointment. Devastated, she returned to the chapel, its walls echoing with the cries of worshippers. During testimony night, she stood before the congregation, the heaviness of her heart laid bare. "I am struggling," she confessed, her voice trembling, "but I am choosing to believe." In that sacred moment of vulnerability, a divine light enveloped the room, igniting a revival that stirred the spirits of all present, igniting newfound hope through shared faith. Days turned into weeks, and Sophie's resolve began to strengthen, yet trials still came. At a prayer meeting, the atmosphere thickened with expectation. As fervent prayers bounded upward, a divine presence wrapped around her, real and palpable. Laughter echoed, tears flowed, and hope surged. In the depths of this encounter, she felt the heavy chains of addiction begin to loosen, like shackles thrown off in the face of freedom. Empowered, Sophie understood her journey was interlaced with a purpose far greater than her own. But her transformation sowed seeds of doubt in the hearts of others. Questions failed to quieten. How long will it last? They whispered, uncertainty cast in their eyes. Would she truly overcome the darkness that had once consumed her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the journey went on, Sophie wrestled with the voices of doubt, but she also embraced a fierce determination. Each miraculous step she took unveiled pieces of her spirit, transforming her from within. With each day, the shadows of addiction grew fainter. Yet, in the silence of her struggle, a profound question began to echo in the depths of her heart. Would the 7 miraculous steps lead her to the freedom she desperately longed for, or would the shadows loom larger than her faith? In the heart of Wendell, Sophie woke each morning with a mix of hope and trepidation. Sunlight spilled through her window, bathing her in a warm glow, a daily reminder of God's grace. Yet, the shadows of doubt still lingered, casting their dark influence over her thoughts. Today would mark the beginning of the 2nd miraculous step, and as she rose, she felt a fire within her, a determination fueled by faith. She turned her thoughts to the step ahead. Surrender. The pastor's words echoed in her mind, urging her to let go and place her burdens in God's hands. How could she truly surrender? Would letting go mean becoming vulnerable again? risking another moment of disappointment? Gathering strength, she joined the congregation for the evening prayer meeting. The familiar buzz of anticipation electrified the air. As she settled into her seat, she caught sight of her husband. Mark appeared restless, his fingers tapping nervously against his knee. She felt a pang of sadness for him. He had witnessed her struggles. How could she help him understand her journey? As prayers began, their voices swelled into a beautiful chorus, each heartfelt plea rising to the heavens. Sophie closed her eyes, centering her focus on God. She envisioned her addiction as a heavy cloak draped around her shoulders, suffocating her spirit. With each prayer, she pictured herself peeling away layers of shame and disappointment. Then it came a moment of clarity. She envisioned Jesus standing before her, arms open wide, inviting her to step fully into his embrace. She felt tears flood her eyes, a cathartic release as she surrendered her burdens. "I trust you," she whispered, every fiber of her being aching for transformation. "I end that sacred encounter." Sophie felt a warmth envelop her, driving out the remnants of her struggle. She could practically hear the chains of addiction breaking, one by one, as courage filled her heart. With every passing moment, the weight of despair eased. When she opened her eyes, the world seemed brighter, and she felt lighter. After the meeting, the congregation was abuzz with renewed fervor. As Sophie stepped outside, she was met by familiar faces. Each one wore expressions of support, smiles reflecting a shared hope. "You're glowing," exclaimed Barbara, a dear friend who had battled her own demons and emerged victorious. "Thank you, Barbara. I'm starting to feel the chains breaking," Sophie replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. Yet, just as she basked in the warmth of community, doubt crept in again. The same voices that had whispered worry now murmured, was that just an emotional high? Would she truly be able to let go of the addiction long-term? As the days rolled on, Sophie faced the challenge of maintaining her spirit. Questions lingered like persistent shadows. Each day offered a new battle, a lingering scent, a familiar song. Temptations danced around her. But with every moment she leaned into God's promise, she felt more empowered, like a phoenix rising from ashes. At tea gathering later in the week, a guest speaker shared a story of his own struggles. As he recounted his battles, Sophie found parts of herself nestled within his words. "Freedom comes not from our strength but through our surrender," he declared, drawing amas of heartfelt responses from the congregation. Sophie absorbed his wisdom, a fresh wave of hope crashing over her. Freedom was not merely about the absence of addiction. It was about embracing grace, understanding that imperfections did not disqualify her from God's love. As she reflected on his words, she realized acceptance was the next vital step, learning to forgive herself amid the battle. But as excitement grew for the third step, a familiar sense of unease whispered within her. Would she falter again? Would the shadows of addiction come creeping back, snatching away the grace she was beginning to believe was truly hers? Her eyes searched the night sky, vast and unending, filled with possibilities. What other divine truths awaited her? She pondered, a fragile hope igniting within her heart, a flicker of light in the looming uncertainty. As she laid her head on the pillow that night, a sacred question swirled through her thoughts, preparing her for what lay ahead. What would her acceptance reveal, and would she find the courage to embrace it? Sophie woke the next morning with an unusual peace settling over her heart. The sun was just peeking through her curtains, bathing the room in delicate light, as if heaven itself was serenading her. She could feel the warmth on her skin, a reflection of the warmth she was beginning to experience inside. This hope felt different. It was rooted in something deeper than fleeting sentiments. As she prepared breakfast, she recalled the words of the guest speaker. "Freedom comes not from our strength but through our surrender." They resonated as she whisked the eggs, reminding her that each mundane task could hold divine significance if approached with purpose. Perhaps her home, filled with the aroma of morning, could echo the sanctuary she found in prayer. Mark entered the room, his usual quietness amplified by the spiritual significance hanging in the air. "Good morning," she said, as she glanced over her shoulder to meet his eyes. His gaze held a hint of worry, a flicker of uncertainty that tugged at Sophia's heart. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. "Hopeful," Sophie admitted, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. "I'm learning to accept everything. The good, the bad, all of it." Mark nodded slowly, as if weighing her words. "That sounds well, it sounds brave. I just wish I knew how to help you through this." In that moment, Sophie realized that sharing her journey with him was as important as her own healing. "You are helping just by being here, Mark. Your support means everything." She exhaled, releasing the heaviness of worry that had threatened to creep back in. After breakfast, Sophie felt a pull to visit the church. The quiet sanctuary called to her like a lighthouse beckoning to a weary sailor. As she entered, she was struck by the stillness, the sacred silence that wrapped around her like a warm cloak. The faint scent of polished wood blended with the remnants of incense, stirring her spirit. She sank into a pew, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply, feeling the sanctuary embrace her. In that stillness, she prayed, pouring out her heart and inviting acceptance into her life. "Lord, I release my fears. I choose to accept who I am today, broken yet beloved." Tears fell unbidden, each one carrying away a fragment of old pain. As she opened her eyes, a beam of sunlight pierced through the stained glass, splashing vibrant colors around her. It felt as if God was affirming her journey, a reminder that beauty coexists with struggle. In that moment, she felt the weight of shame lift ever so slightly. Yet, as she left the church, the looming question remained. How could acceptance bring true transformation? The day unfurled before her, filled with challenges and triggers a reality she couldn't ignore. Conversations with friends, reminders of past escapades, and the whispers of old habits tugged at her. Determined to anchor herself in faith, Sophie decided to jot down uplifting scriptures each morning. She wrote verses that reminded her of her identity as a child of God, cherished and renewed. "I am more than a conqueror," she would repeat. Each word became a lifeline as days passed. Her new routine became a source of strength. She discovered that acceptance was not a passive state but an active choice. Each moment spent in gratitude built resilience, layer by layer. Yet doubts lingered like clouds, darkening her resolve. The temptation to retreat into familiar comforts loomed. On her way to a friend's gathering one evening, an old panic tinged with excitement wrapped around her. How could she truly embrace acceptance when the very shadows of her past whispered so insidiously? As she stepped into the room, laughter and conversation filled her ears. Faces she adored welcomed her with open arms. Yet beneath the joy lay a current of anxiety. Could she really withstand the weight of those familiar surroundings? Would she succeed where she once felt so lost? Each moment holding the potential for both joy and stumbling, Sophie stood at a crossroads. The transformative power of acceptance beckoned her forward. Yet the question loomed like an unresolved mystery. Would she dare to fully embrace it, even amidst the swirl of temptations? As her heart raced, Sophie realized this was more than just a gathering. This was a test of her newfound strength. What would unfold if she chose to lean into acceptance, truly accepting both herself and the imperfect nature of her journey? With a deep breath, she took her first step into the room, wondering what sacred truths awaited her beyond the doorway. As Sophie stepped inside, the atmosphere buzzed with laughter and chatter, the kind that can lift a heart or knock it down in the same instant. The warmth of friendship enveloped her, but beneath it, the flickering anxiety gnawed at her. Could she navigate this sea of familiar faces without slipping back into old, comfortable habits? Friends waved her over, their smiles genuine and inviting. Sophie felt the tension in her chest tighten, yet she smiled back, forcing her feet to move. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, remembering the peace she had felt just days before. "Hey Sophie, glad you made it," called out Mia, her closest friend. "We were just about to start a game. You in?" The thought of engaging in something joyous pulled at her heart. But then, a shadow crept in. Memories of wild nights and reckless choices danced at the edge of her mind. Each laugh that echoed felt like a reminder of how far she still had to go. "Sure, I'll join," she replied, trying to mask the uncertainty in her voice. Yet, as the game began, her mind raced. Every shout, every cheer was a possible trigger. Like a glass teetering on the edge of a table, she felt herself poised to either spill over or find balance. Just then, the host, David, walked in holding a small, framed picture, his eyes sparkling. "I found this in my attic. It's us from last summer." He placed the photo on the table, the image capturing a night of unrestrained laughter and fun. The moment froze. The picture, a haunting reminder of choices made, dangers flirted with, brought a wave of emotion crashing over her. "Look at us. We had no worries," Mia chimed, laughter spilling from her lips. But to Sophie, the laughter felt hollow, echoing in the cavern of her heart, heavy with last year's regrets. She fought against the tide of memories threatening to drag her under. Instead, she found strength in her newfound understanding of acceptance. "I can embrace my past, but it doesn't define my future," she whispered inwardly. "Hey, Sophie, you okay?" Marcus' voice broke through her thoughts as he leaned in, concern etched on his face. She met his gaze and saw both confusion and support reflected back at her. "I'm still here," she said, the words tastefully bold. "I'm still learning." With every laugh and story that unfolded around her, Sophie felt a shift. It was as if she was standing on the threshold of a revelation. The laughter was not an invitation to succumb, but rather an opportunity to engage genuinely while holding onto her truth. "Can we play a different game?" Sophie suggested, her voice steadier now as she reclaimed her space in the circle. "Something that doesn't stir up all of this?" Mark smiled, pride lighting up his eyes. "Great idea. How about charades?" The group cheered, shifting to a fresh burst of energy, letting go of the past for the moment. As they started, Sophie felt the worry begin to dissipate. With each goofy gesture and burst of laughter, she grasped at the truth of her acceptance. She was no longer bound by fear. Yet, in her heart, a deeper question lingered. Was this strength, this power of acceptance, something that could be sustained when faced with the trials of life beyond this moment? As the night unfolded, surrounded by love and laughter, she clung to hope. What if perhaps embracing change meant staying present in joy, even while facing the shadows that had once pulled her down? Just beyond the laughter, the edges of her heart still fluttered with possibility. Each moment felt like another step into the divine. The night was far from over, and Sophie was curious about what other transformations awaited her. Would this newfound strength carry her through the waves that life was bound to send her way? What divine revelations still lay hidden, waiting to emerge? As Sophie immersed herself in the light-hearted spirit of charades, a warmth began to blossom within her. Each exaggerated gesture, each burst of laughter, felt like a cleansing wave washing over what had been a murky horizon of doubt and shame. She noticed how the room vibrated with joy, a collective pulse of love that seemed to wrap around her, buoying her spirit higher. When it was her turn, she leapt into action, channeling inner strength she didn't fully understand. The blindfold of uncertainty slipped away, revealing an unfiltered joy. She mimicked sliding down a hill, arms outstretched, laughter bubbling up uncontrollably as her friends caught on and cheered her on. It was a moment of pure freedom, a moment she couldn't have imagined herself embracing just weeks prior. As the game unfolded, she caught glimpses of her friends' faces, each filled with delight and support. They weren't just playing a game. They were becoming part of her healing, each silliness an anchor, each laugh a glimpse of grace. Could this really be her life now? A life built on strength, not frailty? Between rounds, Sophie found herself seated next to Mia, who leaned in, her voice lowered. "You're really shining tonight, sophomore. What has changed?" Sophie paused, heart swirling with the truth. It wasn't just the charades or the laughter, it was the acceptance that she had unearthed. "I'm learning to embrace myself, the good and the bad. I'm not defined by who I was but by who I'm becoming." Mia nodded, her expression softening. "That's powerful. You have made such an incredible journey. I'm just really proud of you." The words struck a chord deep within. Pride from another felt like a validation of the battles fought within. A voice, perhaps divine, whispered reminders that she was not walking this road alone. As the night continued, Sophie felt a shift not only within herself but also in the atmosphere of the gathering. The tone moved from light-hearted games to deeper conversations, inspired by the initial joyful energy. One by one, her friends shared their own struggles, bathing the room in vulnerability and truth. It echoed through the hearts gathered like a sweet fragrance. Then, David took a breath and spoke. You know, sharing our burdens is part of healing together. I've been dealing with fear, always worried about what tomorrow brings. I sometimes feel stuck. His honesty was a gentle nudge to Sophie's spirit. She realized the beauty of their connection. Every heart, every struggle, was tied to each other. Each one a thread in the tapestry of life's beautiful yet messy story. We're all on this journey together, Sophie said, her voice imbued with newfound assurance. What if we leaned on each other? What if we made a pact to support each other, to be there in the ups and downs? A tender silence lingered in the air before Mia spoke up. Yes, let us do that. Together, support is so much stronger. In that moment, the group embraced the idea with nods and cheers. They vowed to check in with one another, to hold each other accountable and uplift one another in their individual fights. Sophie knew the path ahead would not always be easy. She anticipated future tides that might challenge her resolve. But now, she also held the assurance of community, the embrace of fellowship that illuminated the darkness. The night wound down, voices quieter now, as the group blossomed into what felt like a sacred bond. Sophie allowed herself to feel the peace wrap around her, a sense of belonging without the fear that had once defined her. What awaited her in the coming days? Would these connections stand firm when the winds of life grew strong again? As she floated home through the quiet streets, a question lingered, flickering in her mind like a candle in the dusk. What potential lay within the sacred space they had just created together? What divine mysteries might they unveil as they journey onward? As Sophie stepped into her familiar, cozy home, the weight of the night's promises lingered with her. She closed her eyes for a moment, soaking in the stillness that embraced her like a warm blanket. Each shared laugh still danced around her, echoed whispers of faith bolstering her heart. She felt a gentle stirring within, a renewed spirit so alive, so connected. In the quietness, Sophie remembered the words each of her friends had shared, the honest confessions that wrapped around the room like a warm embrace. It felt like a divine moment, a soft nudge from something greater than herself. The thought sent a shiver of hope coursing through her. Could real healing occur when hearts are laid bare in trust? The next morning greeted her with a soft light filtering through the kitchen window. The aroma of her favorite coffee made the corners of her mouth lift. Yet, behind the comfort of her routine, a subtle flutter of anxiety arose. How would she uphold the promises of support they had made? In that precious moment of solitude, Sophie felt an urge to reach out, to hold her friends to their sacred pact. She grabbed her phone and started tapping a message, something warm and comforting. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to check in and see how you're feeling today. Remember, we're in this together. With each ping of agreement and joy that followed from Mia, David, and the others, her heart swelled with gratitude. Each message was a reminder that healing wasn't a solitary journey. It was a shared pilgrimage. Sophie couldn't help but reflect on how they had dared to unveil their burdens, diving deep into vulnerability not just for relief, but to create a canvas of divine connection. Later that week, they gathered once more in a nearby park. The sun overhead radiated warmth, not just from the sky but also from the community they had begun to assemble. As Sophie looked into the faces of her friends, she realized they were not the same people they had been before. Fear and hesitation were replaced with courage and hope. They shared their coursework toward healing, books they had found, meditation practices learned, and even moments of despair that were countered by slices of grace. David spoke up, a note of excitement in his voice. I found this meditation that really resonates. It's all about surrendering our fears. I think we all need reminders about letting go. Sophie nodded along, her spirit soaring. Yes, we need to accept that we can't control everything. This is his plan, and we're simply being guided together. With each confession, the sacred space they had carved felt like a living entity, vibrant and breathing. Each moment shared was like sprinkling seeds of faith, growing into something beautiful with the potential to transform. Tears bubbled to Sophia's eyes, not tears of sorrow but of overwhelming joy and strength. It was divine insight. She felt God walking with them, whispering hope into their hearts, igniting a bond that could withstand every storm ahead. That night, Sophie sat on her bed, deep in reflection. What other secrets lay in the journey ahead? Surely there were challenges awaiting them. But she also sensed something immense. Miraculous healing was possible when hearts were open. As she drifted off to sleep, the still voice within asked her a pivotal question. How far could they go together? What greater revelation awaited them on their path of healing? Sophie smiled softly, knowing that with each step taken in faith, they uncovered the divine. What new horizons of hope would they see at dawn? The morning sun peeked through Sophie's curtains, announcing a new day filled with promise. As she stretched, the warmth of the golden light seemed to wrap around her, motivating her to rise with a heart full of hope. Today was different. Today, they were all meeting to embark on an even deeper journey, one that would demand faith, honesty, and perhaps more vulnerability than ever before. To the coffee shop where they had initially gathered, a wave of excitement filled the air. Sophie arrived early, savoring the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around her. With each sip, she felt the heartwarming sense of community growing stronger, like roots intertwining beneath surface soil. A table was already set, each chair waiting for a spirit ready to commune. One by one, her friends trickled in, laughter breaking the morning silence. Mia was the first to spill over with joy, her eyes sparkling. I spent some time meditating last night, and it was like I could feel God speaking. He told me to be brave. I don't know what that means yet, but it feels powerful. Sophie felt the energy shift in the space, the excitement of faith bubbling like a river ready to burst forth. Encouraged by Mia's words, she took a deep breath and shared her own recent experience. I had a dream where I was walking through a garden of flowers, but they were all different. Some were blooming beautifully while others were wilting. I think it was about understanding our growth paths. We've all been through hard seasons. Yet here we are, showing Goddess love and strength. David, who had been carefully listening, added, "It's so true. It's not about being perfect, but about being present. The journey is where we find him." His voice carried conviction, causing murmurs of agreement to ripple through the group as they shared their insights. Sophie felt a pull in her spirit, an urging to lead them into a new direction. What if we not only shared our stories but prayed for clarity on how we move forward in faith? A tight knot of excitement mixed with fear formed in her chest. What if her friends had issues they didn't want to share? But the atmosphere felt electric. Encouraged by the warmth of fellowship, they circled closer, each heart a beacon of openness. Hand in hand, they bowed their heads, enveloped in an unspoken agreement. When Sophie's words flowed like a river, everyone listened intently as she prayed for healing and insight, asking for divine revelations to carry them through challenges yet unseen. A sense of peace washed over Sophie as she prayed. An image of blooming flowers danced in her mind. Goddess' promise of renewal felt tangible. They might struggle, but together, they would endure. After the prayer, Mia looked up, her face glowing with insight. What if we created a healing circle, a place where we can be raw and real? We could support one another as we tackle life's challenges, even the tougher addictions. Sophie felt a wave of affirmation wash over her. Yes. And we can include practices like journaling, accountability, or even exploring scripture that speaks into our struggles. It was as if a new chapter opened before them, a chapter of compassion-driven actions. As plans began to take shape, Sophie noticed the shimmer of determination shining in everyone's eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling of divine oversight. Hearts were aligning, and the Holy Spirit was moving among them, urging them to dig deeper, to trust more fully. That evening, as they concluded their gathering, the weight of their commitment hung in the air, charged with hope. Yet, deep down, Sophie sensed something more awaited them. Every path uncovered would lead somewhere divine. What would emerge from their new commitments? What trials and triumphs loom on the horizon? As they slipped back into their lives, anticipation saturated the atmosphere. They were hungry for healing and ready for transformation. What would God reveal next? The journey had just begun. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Sophie reflected on the day's happenings. The anticipation of their healing circle lingered in her heart like a sweet melody. She knew that the journey ahead would require more than just words. It would demand an earnest commitment from everyone involved. The following week dawned brightly, and the group reconvened at the cozy coffee shop. There was an electricity in the air, as if the very atmosphere crackled with possibility. Sophie greeted her friends with a warm smile. "I can't wait to hear what God has spoken to each of you since we last met. Who would like to share?" Mia immediately chimed in, her enthusiasm brightening the room. "I read a passage from Isaiah about how he will renew our strength. It made me think about perseverance. It feels like God is equipping me for something incredible." Her spirit was infectious, and the group responded with nods of encouragement. David added, "I found myself journaling every day after we talked. It's a bit scary to write down my struggles, but it's freeing too. God's light shines brighter when I let out my fears." The sincerity in his voice resonated deeply, stirring something within each of them. Encouraged by their transparency, Sophie unfolded a little piece of her own heart. "I've been wrestling with my own fears too. I was thinking about how we can truly support each other. It's all about making space to be vulnerable." As they delved deeper, ideas began to flow freely. They brainstormed ways they could keep the circle safe, a sanctuary anchored in love and acceptance. "Maybe we could each take turns leading a session?" suggested Mia. "That way we can each bring our unique gifts to the table." "Yes," Sophie replied, a spark igniting in her. "We can encourage one another to share our testimonies. They'll be our guiding lights." A wave of excitement washed over them, and a sense of unity gripped the group. Each story shared echoed with authenticity, a reminder of their shared humanity and divine purpose. Suddenly, the weight of a looming silence settled upon them, transforming into a sacred atmosphere. They sat in a circle, hands clasped together as Sophie invited the presence of the Holy Spirit into their midst. She closed her eyes, sensing a profound stillness as they prepared to pray once more. "Let us take a moment to seek what God desires for us today." As the prayer unfolded, an unexpected warmth flooded the room. It was as if heaven had opened just a crack, pouring down a gentle light, a reminder they were not alone on this journey. One by one, they began to journal after the prayer, pouring out their hearts as the ink flowed like a river of healing. Words of confession and hope mingled on the pages, each phrase a step forward into the unknown. After their journaling session, Sophie hesitated for a moment, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. "Perhaps we should take a leap of faith together tonight, a collective commitment." "What do you mean?" asked David cautiously, intrigued yet wary. "I propose we each write a letter to God, articulating our biggest struggle, and then pray for the strength to overcome it. Together, we can symbolically burn these letters, releasing our burdens into his hands." The room buzzed with anticipation. "Wow, that's powerful." Mia smiled, a glimmer of certainty in her eyes. "Let us do it." They gathered supplies for the letters, each friend feeling the gravity of what they were about to commit to. As they poured their souls onto paper, Sophie felt it, the unmistakable presence of the divine. The atmosphere became charged, ready for breakthrough and divine intervention. Once they finished, Sophie thanked everyone for their vulnerability. Holding her letter tightly, she led them outside to a fire pit they had reserved for this sacred moment. The flames crackled and danced as they tossed their letters into the fire one by one. "In Jesus' name, we claim freedom from our fears and addictions," Sophie declared, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. The fire roared, illuminating their faces with a warm glow. Sophie felt the heart of her friends gravitating toward something monumental yet mysterious, an open door to true transformation. What would arise from this collective act of surrender? Was God about to show them the next steps on their path to victory? Excitement swirled in Sophie's heart as the flames flickered in the night, whispering promises yet to be fulfilled. Little did they know, the journey ahead would lead deeper into the heart of healing than any of them could have imagined. The night air was cool against their skin, the warmth of the fire a stark contrast to the chills that often accompanied raw vulnerability. Sophie glanced around at her friends, each of them glowing with the aftermath of their collective experience. The flames crackled, sending sparks dancing into the star-speckled sky, and an unexplainable peace settled over the group like a comforting blanket. "Can you feel it?" Mia whispered half to herself. Her eyes shone bright, reflecting the firelight. "It's like the weight has really been lifted." Sophie nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Yes, it feels like we've just taken the first step into something greater." David, still gazing into the flames, added, "But what comes next? I feel this urgency, like God is moving us toward something." His expression was serious, resonating with a deeper connection to the divine that had nestled itself within the group. The weightiness of his words hung in the air. Sophie felt a stirring in her spirit, as if the very essence of the night beckoned them to listen closely. "You know," she began slowly, "I think God might be calling us to step even further. We've laid down our burdens, but what if we each took time to reflect on what he wants to replace those struggles with?" A flicker of realization passed between them. It wasn't just about what they were releasing. It was about what they were also inviting in. Mia leaned in, a bright idea igniting in her eyes. "Why don't we seek God together? Maybe through prayer or meditation, we can discover a word or a vision from him that can guide us individually, like a compass for our journeys." Sophie felt a surge of excitement. "Exactly. Let us spend the next few sessions focusing on this. Each time we can share what we've received. This might lead us to a miraculous healing process." David, visibly passionate, jumped in. "Let us also incorporate moments of worship. Music has a way of breaking down walls, right? It creates connections in our spirits." The idea sparked enthusiasm, and Mia clapped her hands together. "I can bring my guitar. We could have worship sessions before we share what God reveals to us." They all exchanged nods, a commitment reverberating in the air. Sophie smiled, knowing they had not only caught a glimpse of what was next, but also felt the heartbeat of the Holy Spirit urging them on. "Let us do this together. It's a journey, and we are going to walk it hand in hand." As the fire began to dwindle down, they each took a turn sharing their hopes for this new initiative. The room was alive with faith. Words flowed like a river, filled with dreams and desires wrapped in divine purpose. Each utterance was a thread weaving their stories together, and Sophie felt the palpable presence of God amongst them. Finally, as the night unfolded into silence, Sophie suggested, "Let us seal this commitment with one more prayer, asking for clarity and direction." The group formed a tight circle once more, hands clasped, hearts united. The prayer emerged as a tapestry of voices, each person pouring out their longing for guidance, their trust in God to lead them into the next chapter. Sophie felt the power surrounding them, a divine thread braided through every heartbeat. When they finished, the fire had almost extinguished, glowing embers swirling into the night. A profound stillness enveloped them, and Sophie sensed an urgency once more, a want to know how deeply their lives might be transformed through this calling. Would they encounter revelations that would alter their paths forever? Would God illuminate ways to navigate their struggles? As the last bit of heat ebbed from the doused flames, the question lingered in the air, a vibrant curiosity stimulating their eager spirits. What would happen when the time for unveiling their personal revelations arrived? As dawn broke over Wendell, the golden light spilled through the trees, illuminating Sophia's humble home. She awoke with a profound sense of purpose thrumming in her heart. Today would be a day of divine encounters. Today, they would discover the revelations God was waiting to share with them. Gathered once again at that familiar coffee shop, Sophie and her friends felt the electricity in the air, a sacred anticipation weaving through their souls. The aroma of coffee wrapped around them like the embrace of a warm hug, nourishing friendships blooming in the shared space. With her heart racing, Sophie took a deep breath and smiled brightly. "Are you all ready to see what God has for us today?" she asked, her hands trembling slightly from excitement. Mia nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling like bright gems. Absolutely. I've been praying and preparing. David chimed in, the intensity of his gaze revealing his own eagerness. Me too. This is a pivotal moment for us. As they settled into their routine, Sophie could feel the presence of the Holy Spirit wrapping around them like a familiar blanket, anchoring their hearts in palpable faith. They opened the session with worship, Mia's voice strumming through the air, sending melodic waves of hope around the table. As praises filled the space, Sophie couldn't help but close her eyes, allowing every note to wash over her as tears glided down her cheeks. Each lyric seemed to scatter the remnants of her past, illuminating her spirit with an undeniable boldness. The shadows that once loomed over her began to dissipate in the light of their collective worship. Once they finished singing, it was time to share their revelations. Sophie invited each friend to unburden their hearts, the atmosphere rife with courage and connection. One by one, their voices intertwined with sincerity and vulnerability. I received the word courage, Mia began, her face glowing. God showed me that I must face my fears head-on, the way a lion protects its pride. Her confession resonated deeply with the group. David shared next, his voice steady yet vulnerable. My word is trust. God is calling me to lean into his guidance instead of relying solely on my own understanding. A murmur of agreement rippled through the table as they nodded, affirming the truth of his journey as the stories unfolded. Sophie felt the threads of empathy weaving tighter among them. They were not simply a group. They were a family forged through faith. It was Sophie's turn to share, and her heart raced with anticipation. My word is hope, she revealed, her voice quivering with emotion. In my struggles, God reminded me that I can be a vessel of hope for others. Freeing myself from addiction means I can help others find their own freedom. The revelation breathed new life into her spirit, illuminating the purpose behind her journey of healing. Each friend's revelation wrapped around Sophie like a protective shield, creating a bond stronger than ever. Together they felt charged, raw and unfiltered, poised at the precipice of what God could do through yielded hearts. After offering prayers for one another, sealing the revelations with faith, Sophie felt a sense of being sent forth. They weren't just battling struggles. They were bearing the torch of shared hope into the world. What would this glorious light illuminate as they ventured beyond the sanctuary of their gathering space? Stepping out into the sun-drenched town, Sophie was overwhelmed by the warmth of a promise, the kind that rippled through her entire being. It wasn't only about overcoming addiction anymore. It was about transforming lives, inspiring others with authentic faith, sharing the joy that surged within her. Can you feel this? She exclaimed, pointing toward the horizon, her spirit buoyed by newfound strength. We are meant to shine, just as we have discovered our words. Let us go out and empower others. As they ventured forth, hearts ablaze, the shadows that once clouded their paths were obliterated by the light they carried. Together as a family they moved toward hope and healing like flowers bending toward the sun. Sophie knew their journey was just beginning. God had so much more in store for each of them. Armed with courage, trust, and hope, they would not only nurture each other as healing, but also seek out those who remained ensnared in darkness. With hope ignited, they stepped boldly into a world waiting for true transformation. The whispers of their past experiences sparked encouragement as they came upon souls craving relief. Friend, Sophie called out to an unsteady figure on the street corner. We see you. We know your struggles, but we also know the joy of healing. Let us share this light with you. They flowed together like a river, the promise of their revelations cascading down the streets, transforming even the darkest corners. Healing rippled outward as seeds of faith were planted, blooming in the fertile soil of love and community. As they journeyed on, Sophie clung to one truth. Every step taken in faith, every moment shared in love, would collide to create something unimaginable. Together, they would illuminate the world, a beacon of divine hope forged through struggle, vulnerability, and profound connection. And just like that, the testimony of transformation threaded through the tapestry of Wendell, one filled with the threads of courage, trust, and hope, woven directly into the fabric of life. Gada's story was unraveling before their eyes, and Sophie's heart danced with joy filled to the brim with unimaginable grace. It felt like the love of God was breathing life into every crevice of their hearts, whispering, "This is just the beginning. Dear ones, you need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories that will uplift your spirits. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure that these transformative journeys reach those who need it most. Comment below to share your thoughts and personal testimonies about how this story impacted you. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who are searching for hope and healing. Only true servants of God understand the importance of spreading the light.